Well, to come back to the distinction between Plato and Socrates that we were describing earlier, you mentioned that in the dialogue with Alcibiades, he talks about how the common working people that Socrates engaged with were very moved one way or another, maybe angered or maybe brought to tears by having a dialogue with Socrates.
True.
And that did not happen with the Platonic dialectic.
Never.
Why not?
Well, I think primarily Plato's vision, I think he saw in society the danger of rhetoric and rhetoricians. We call people in public relations, PR. They're really the role of sophists. And I think he saw the price that his teacher Socrates paid by being victims and critics of these sophists. And I think when you see Anytos, which is described in one of the dialogues, he sees that these people were hostile to philosophy and they chose to therefore put Socrates to death. So Plato, I think, singled out these sophists and made them subjects of his dialogue to show their own stupidity and their own intellectual confusion.
How would you define a sophist?
Oh, the person who thinks they know when they do not know and eloquently talk about their ignorance as if it were knowledge.
And I gather they were very common in ancient Athens.
And around my neighborhood as well. And one of the dialogues is the Theaetetus. And Theaetetus is a young man who happens to be a student with his teacher. And his teacher happens to be Gorgias. His teacher happens to be Protagoras. So behind this dialogue that Socrates has with Theaetetus looms the figure of Protagoras, who had that great view which is so common today, relative. Everyone has their own personal view. Who's to say who is right or wrong? Whatever I say is true to me, what you say is true to you. Who can tell whether anything is true independent of personal belief? That view is taken apart. This is the most popular view you can find in today's society.
Yes, you hear it all the time. People respond. I see people responding in the comment section of these videos with that very same comment. When I say, for example, we ought to pay attention to facts. And people say, no, everybody has an opinion. There is no such thing as a fact.
But Socrates takes the position, doesn't argue that way. He says, excuse me, if your view is right, doesn't it follow then that the way each person perceives things is private and true to them? When someone walks away from you, would you not agree they become smaller and smaller until they disappear? For that's the way it appears, does it not? When the sun goes down and you finally see it vanish, well, it really does go down, doesn't it? I mean, you see it. And of course, according to your theory, if everything you see is personal and true to you, then you must believe such things as we're talking about. Is it true that anything that seems true to me is actually true on the basis of perception, where perception turns out to be an illusion? That's what he does. He assumes the person's view is right, never disagrees with it, draws out from their position the absurdities inherent in it, gives it back to the person and says, look here, is this what you mean? Now they have to judge their own theory.
So this is where they are left confronting their own ignorance.
That's right.
And that leaves them not in a state of great excitement or anger or sorrow, but in a state of puzzlement.
He goes for puzzlement. Socrates goes for transformation. Yes.